Thank you, thank you. This is Monty. Thanks again for that such a warm welcome early in the morning like this. I really appreciate it when you guys do that. This is Monty. For those of you who don't know, from DPL Surveillance Equipment, we're a full-service surveillance and security equipment company. We have lifetime guarantees and warranties on all the products. Thank you. And we have a very, very large video library. We have the largest articles directory, 24/7, 365 tech sales and customer support, and lifetime guarantees and warranties on all the products. We always like to try to come up with interesting topics. In addition to talking about, the specific company's products and services, we also like to occasionally come out with podcasts and videos, etc., articles about popular topics, things that should be of interest to people who are not only entrepreneurs but consumers as well. Today's topic is all about payment processing, and where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going. Thank you. When it comes to money, people typically want to pay attention, and I hope you guys are going to be paying attention and listening intensely, because we're going to cover some topics that are going to hopefully reveal a lot of strengths and weaknesses as far as the current system and systems that we could look into and be a part of going forward in the future. Currently, we're dealing with what is typically identified as a broken, corrupt, highly, a very costly, antiquated payment processing system. And this is not only burdening consumers or shoppers, but it also burdens merchants and retailers as well. Whether you're offline or online, it really doesn't matter. When the payment processing systems that we have to use every day, online or offline, when they're broken and they're very expensive and they're very bureaucratic and they're very skewed towards just collecting money from us without giving us a whole lot of value, that's a problem. So what we're gonna do is highlight what are some of the problems and what are some of the proposed solutions. Okay, so right now we have this system whereby we're basically told that we have to pay these fees. It's almost like a ransom or something. As a merchant, you pay fees to have Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover, and those guys. They take money from you, and they tell you, well, if you want to use our network, it's going to cost you. And, we entrepreneurs, we business owners, we merchants, we create economic activity by coming up with products and services to sell, and consumers buy them. So we do the marketing, we do the advertising, we do the sourcing, we make things, invent things, and we spend a lot of time and money. But yet, we're told that, that's not good enough. If you want to actually sell anything, you've got to go through this middleman who's just going to tell you, these are the costs of sending money back and forth. And they're extracting fees. It's almost like some sort of mafia-style organization, whereby money is extorted from us, and we have to go along with it, or otherwise we don't get to process these transactions, right? From a merchant perspective. Even as a consumer, you guys got to be aware of the fact that when we have to pay more money to these extortionists, these crime bosses known as MasterCard and Visa, Discover, even Western Union and MoneyGram, because they want to charge us to move money around, right? I don't know if you guys know it or not, but the cost of moving money around has dropped pretty much to zero. But technology being what it is, money has been reduced to being debits and credits and bits and bytes on a computer. That's all it is. You have a certain amount of money in your account, so that's a credit, and someone who has who owes money to someone else, basically that's like a debit or a charge or a liability or something, right? So that's the only thing that accounting systems of the world are doing. They're just keeping track of who owes what to who. And either it shows up as a credit or it shows up as a debit. And as long as you have some sort of software or program, that's all we're doing nowadays. We're keeping track of debits and credits on a computer screen or in a computer program or in an application. That's all it is. That's why the younger generation, they're going to be taking more advantage of the app-based banking, app-based lending, app-based transferring money peer-to-peer, because they get it. They understand it. This is the new world. But you older folks, you got to understand, look, this is inevitable for you as well. And if you want to stop being taken advantage of, you got to pay attention to these trends and jump on and this bandwagon. But find out what is the problem and what is the solution, okay? So when we make this transition from old antiquated mafia style and highly expensive bureaucratic system, convoluted, and we're going to move away from that and transition into this new digital payments network where we have money and transactions moving at the speed of light from one person to the other, from one country to the other, without bureaucratic red tape and, who are you, where do you live, what is your name and address, social security number, all of that stuff. That's part of the problem. That's not part of the solution. So getting right down to some specific examples, okay, I process transactions every day, like a lot of retailers and merchants. And what's happening is every day, the fees are extorted from my account. They're called discount fees. And we have to build into our cost structure the costs of moving that money from customer's account to my account. But there's a middleman, okay? The extortionists are saying, it's not enough that you created this product. It's not enough that you created this service. It's not enough that you did all of this marketing to reach people, to get people to call your toll-free number or whatever, email you, do an order with your company. That's not enough. You have to pay the extortionists, the crime boss, the people who want to get in the middle, and they call it intermediaries, and they want to extort that fee because the bits and the bytes on the computer screen and the ones and the zeros, that actually is burdensome. That's actually labor intensive, is what they tell us. And they extort a fee based upon, these computers sweating behind the scenes and transferring this money back and forth. So as ridiculous as that sounds, that's actually what they're telling us, and that's what they're doing. So we need to understand that, look, that is the most stupid thing imaginable. And on the consumer side, when you give up so much information, in order to buy a pack of chewing gum, the name and the address and the phone numbers and all of that stored in a database available to hackers in China, Russia, and Yugoslavia and everywhere else, that is part of the problem. That's not part of the solution. So we need to make sure that we understand that with the advent of Bitcoin and blockchain and some of these technologies, we can start offering these to our customers. So even though Bitcoin is still taking off, there's nothing wrong with you integrating that into your shopping cart for little or no money and offering it, okay? That way, because I don't know whether or not this is a chicken egg scenario or not. Sometimes you offer the service and people latch onto the service after the fact, or sometimes people demand their service and then you go and offer the service after they demand it. But as long as you have it in place, and the education level picks up so much, then you'll probably be in a good position to offer it to your customers. Thank you. It sounds like at least a few people get it. So you integrate, for instance, Bitcoin into your shopping cart, promote it as much as you can, and then when the educational level picks up and we get mass adoption for this virtual currency and this digital payment systems and advanced networks that we're eventually going to transition into, then that way we can all benefit from it. So yeah, you consumers out there understand we have an alternative. Visa, MasterCard, and those guys are making $50 billion on up a year off of doing nothing but extracting fees from us merchants and hardworking entrepreneurs, and even you customers when you pay higher prices for goods and services. And you merchants, full well when customers do chargebacks, nobody's really representing the merchant per se. Everybody is representing consumers. Consumers really don't have a high burden to adhere to when they do the reason codes to do a chargeback. They can just say, basically, I don't like the merchant, right? Wrong day, wrong time, wrong phase of the moon, whatever. Make up any ridiculous story, check off a box, and guess what? That money comes back out of your account, and you have to fight and prove that you did everything perfectly, and the consumer or the customer only has to say whatever they want to say, because nobody's advocating for the merchant, nobody's advocating for the retailer. Okay, we have to stick up for ourselves. So let's get the word out that merchants and retailers, we have to stand together and counter and rail against the system, and just basically stop feeding into the system. Stop feeding MasterCard and Visa and American Express, Western Union, MoneyGram, and start to transition your business. Put as much attention to and emphasis on the alternatives. Look at the blockchain. Look at the Bitcoins. Look at the digital payment networks that get rid of middlemen, get rid of intermediaries. Okay, I know the central bankers and the Federal Reserve and the IRS are intimidating a lot of people, but everyone knows that the antiquated system that we relied upon so much in the past is falling apart. Okay, they all know it's falling apart, but I think a lot of merchants and retailers and such really don't know that the old fiat-based currency system is falling apart. It's imploding, and other countries are actually moving forward at a quite significant pace. So yeah, outside the United States, those guys are moving forward, and they're adopting these alternative payment systems, and money is actually flowing across borders without major fees extracted from each and every party. Okay, so actually if you transfer $100, you get pretty close to $100. Okay, if I need to pay someone $50,000 in the United States, I could only transfer probably $10,000 at a time to them, because someone needs to determine whether or not I'm a crook or a criminal or doing money laundering or something, right? So we need to step away from this system where we need to ask Big Brother for permission in order to make the type of money we need to make so we can be prosperous. There was just an article. There was an article published about Western Union being fined $586 million because they were aiding and abetting fraud and scams. Western Union has been investigated by the Department of Justice for at least 2 years, but all the Department of Justice is really doing to them is giving them a fine that they may or may not even have to pay, depending upon whether or not they start acting nice and stop cheating people. But believe it or not, this is a scam on behalf of Western Union and the Department of Justice, because whenever you aid and abet money laundering and fraud over an extended period of time, affecting so many thousands of people, somebody is supposed to go to jail. So if you try that, what Western Union is doing, or even J.P. Morgan Chase and HSBC and even Citibank and Wells Fargo, all those guys, if you guys did that, you would be in jail yesterday. So you got to realize, look, the game is rigged against anybody except the major players. If you have billions of dollars, and you're a large institution, and you have representation in Washington, and you have lobbyists, et cetera, you can get away with this stuff. But if you're not part of that group, then guess what? You can't step outside the box, not even for a second. Otherwise, you go to jail or you go to prison, or you'll be shut down overnight. So we have to understand that the system, the payments network, the fiat-based currency system, the current monetary system needs to be dismantled and gotten rid of, and we need to hurry up and make this transition again so people can start to utilize efficient payment systems and networks, and that way we business owners, we can be as profitable, as prosperous, and wealthy as we should be, given how hard a lot of us work. Okay, there's absolutely no reason why so many entrepreneurs and business owners shouldn't be more wealthy, more prosperous, more financially independent than they are now. There's just too much bureaucracy, too much paperwork, too much struggling to adhere and work with a system that's rigged against them. It's one thing if the game is such that everybody can play according to the rules and it's a fair and level playing field, but it's another thing if it's rigged at the beginning and you're told that if you work hard and do things right, you'll be okay. That if that's not true, then we need to understand why it's not true, why we're not getting the benefits of our hard labor, and why we keep pedaling like a hamster on a treadmill and getting nowhere. Okay. So anyway, I want to wrap this up, but I want to let you know, I just wanted to let you guys know, this is how we can defeat MasterCard and Visa, American Express, and Western Union. Adopt Bitcoin, adopt the blockchain. Get some people to look at it, read about it, go to YouTube, Google Andreas Antonopoulos, Google Roger Ver, take a look at Mark Draper, Darper, and Tim Draper. They're major investors in Bitcoin and blockchain. Just read about everything you can get a hold of. Warren Buffett is making positive, not so much Warren Buffett, but at least Bill Gates, Ben Bernanke, Janet Yellen. Everybody's chiming in on this. Everybody is saying, you know what, even though we initially thought 5 years ago that the Bitcoin was a scam and a pyramid and like the tulips coming out of the Netherlands or Dutch a long time ago, where those things just self-imploded. Bitcoin is not self-imploding. It's not going away. It's not disintegrating. It's not falling in on itself. It's staying around. It's staying here. And more countries, more and more people are using it. More and more people on Wall Street are investing money in it. Now, the same people who predicted Bitcoin's early demise, guess what? They're jumping on the bandwagon. They're putting money into it. They're putting human resources into it. They're putting tech talent into it, from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, you name it. Now they want to jump on the bandwagon. But see, they're trying to co-opt Bitcoin and blockchain so they can come out with their own version and tell you guys, oh, we created something new. They didn't create anything new. Okay, we created it. The people created it. So Satoshi Nakamoto, this anonymous person, organization, or team, or whatever, created it for us. And he unleashed it in a way that you can't take it back. You can't get rid of it. Let's see, hold on. We're going to wrap up this session. I think I'm getting a phone call. So we're going to wrap up this session, and we're going to record it. When you guys share this with a friend, relative, enemy, associate. We don't care who you share it with. Just let's get the word out on Bitcoin and blockchain and make the world a safer place. Okay? You guys, thank you. Thanks. You take care. Bye.